back. And as I go, I love to sing my knapsack on my back. Fa-la-dee, fa-la-la, fa-la-dee, fa-la-la, fa-la-dee, fa-la-la.
So it's been a few years since we spoke last. So where in the world are you today?
We are currently in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, which is actually, we're in the same villa where we spent COVID. We were here for 8 months during COVID.
You were?
What? 2022, 2021?
Yeah, 2021.
And now we are back for 3 months.
You're back in the gayest place on the earth.
It is literally the gayest town on earth. Yes, we are digital nomads. We're nomads. We've been traveling the world for the last 8 years. We call ourselves slow mads. That means we tend to live in a place for 1 to 3 months before moving on. We travel slowly. We're slow travelers. That's the term.
I mean, where were you when I spoke to you last time? Somewhere like Afghanistan, I think.
No, Afghanistan is probably even a little too adventurous for us. We're pretty adventurous, but that would be.
I think we were in Hungary.
Were you? I don't think so.
I'm,
But Brent, Michael, remind us all why you're traveling and when did it start?
Well, we left the United States 8 years ago, and we're going to keep this positive and optimistic. But
Good.
I will say our origin story literally started the night Trump got elected the first time. We were leaving an election party, and Brent turned to me as we were driving home and said, "Let's sell the house and leave the country." And we decided to do that, sort of take control of our lives and head on out the door. And that was 8 years ago, and some 30 countries since then. And it's probably been one of the best decisions we've ever made in our life for all kinds of reasons. You know,
Because I remember talking to you last time, was so impressed how happy you guys were. So, and you sustain this by writing as well. So you have some income coming in, yeah?
We do. We have a newsletter called Brent and Michael Are Going Places.
Which we read avidly here.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, honestly, we've both been novelists and I've been a screenwriter and we do content websites. And this has turned out to be, maybe the most successful thing we've ever done. We're in Puerto Vallarta, as we said, and we've been recognized on the street 4 times now, which is, it's a very gay town, but still,
I know.
I was never recognized that much for my books or for our other websites. So for whatever reason, I think there are a lot of people, we like to say 20% of our viewers or readers are sort of curious about nomading and maybe do it themselves, and another 80% are living vicariously through what we do, but they have obligations or they just they don't want to do it themselves, but they're living through. Although I do think maybe the numbers will tick up in light of recent events.
So tell me, in your journey, what's the biggest and nicest surprise of all so far?
Oh my gosh, it's hard to pick just one. I think the biggest and nicest surprise would be how welcoming and wonderful the world is. We were a little apprehensive when we left the US. We traveled outside the country, but we were a little apprehensive both how we'd be received as Americans in the era of Trump and just sort of some of the ugly American stereotypes. But then, you aren't sure what the world is going to be like outside of that, especially once you leave Western Europe and you go to Eastern Europe or you go to Asia, and things are going to be dramatically different. And you very quickly come to realize not only are people just people, they're mostly really nice and they're happy to have you there and they want to hear your story and they want to tell you their story. And it's just amazing the connections you can make.
It's really been true that it has, my view of humanity hasn't been great. But the traveling has made me feel really positive and optimistic. Ironically, we meet so many people who really do sort of judge us as individuals and are really eager, especially, when you're in a tourist area like Barcelona or Venice, the locals are understandably frustrated with tourists, but you go 5 feet away from the tourist areas and people are really flattered that you came to visit their town and they really want to know you. And so, as Michael said, it's the connections. It's been amazing.
You've been to some second world, third world, fourth world countries. Have you ever encountered any serious homophobia?
I'd have to say we actually haven't, but then it doesn't really count because we are the guests, we're the tourists in the country, we're the rich white Westerners that have a lot of money to spend. And therefore, it's in their interest to treat us well and not frankly really care that we're a gay couple. It's a very different story to be in Turkey, if you are a gay Turk and you're trying to fight for equality, you're going to have very different rules and standards applied to you than we do. So it doesn't really count. And also, we're not of their culture, and so they are less concerned with how we live our life. You know, we're not Muslim, we're not Turkish, we're sort of strange outsiders, so they don't really care that we're gay. I suppose if we were, more aggressively out or advocating for something, which we do in our writing, we do not go to these countries and just enjoy our privilege. We meet the gay community there, we get to know them, we write about them, we share their story, and we try and affect change that way.
But we have witnessed and heard innumerable stories, shocking stories about homophobia, and we want it to be a conversation. We meet a lot of local gay people and we hear their stories, and it's some degree of horrible in many, many countries. And oftentimes I will hear a story and I'll think, oh, that sounds so familiar. That's the way the United States was in the 80s or maybe the aughts. You can sort of see where they are on the journey. And I think things move more quickly now because of social media. The younger generation is sort of has a stronger sense of self and maybe more, conviction. But as Michael said, it doesn't apply to us because it's in their financial interest to not discriminate us, which isn't to say, if something were to go off the rails, frequently we're not sure the authorities would take our side. If we were bashed or if we were discriminated against and they found out that they were picking on us because we were a gay couple, they might side with the abuser. So we are discreet. And we're also, as Michael said, we consider ourselves to be guests in these countries. So we respect the local mores, even if we don't always agree.
Well, in 8 years, nothing has happened. And we are discreet to an extent in that we don't go around holding hands or anything like that. But we do not pretend we're a straight couple. We go to a hotel, we ask for one room.
Well, it depends.
Yeah, it hasn't been very often we've had to worry about anything like that.
Yeah.
You see, as a Brit, an ex-Brit, I feel responsible because we left such nasty laws in the countries we left. And it's our fault they're not getting married and not getting it free. Do you have a favorite country? Or was that too
Whenever
different?
people ask me that question, I always say, that's like asking me to choose amongst my children.
Okay.
What's your favorite child? And what I'm able to honestly say is, with the exception of very few places, there is something I've loved about almost each destination. There are also things that are annoying about each destination, but on the whole, I think back over the past 8 years and I think of the places we've been, and usually some really positive memory comes to the surface very quickly.
But that said, it's funny, there are certain countries that we like, and I think they have certain things in common. We really like Thailand, we really like Mexico, we really like Italy, and the people in all three of those countries are very chill. I won't say the Mexicans are sophisticated exactly, but they're very live and let live. And they're very happy and friendly and welcoming. And the Thai are the same way. And I think the Italians are the same way. And there's sort of I don't know, there's a hospitality, but there's also, there's just sort of, they take you as you are. And the food is great in all three of those countries too.
I was going to say, is there anything you miss from the United States at all?
Gosh, I think the only thing would be our friends, our friends and family. At least speaking for me, I have been amazed in the past 8 years how rarely I think about the United States. It just doesn't come up. Mostly not because I dislike it, but because there's so many other interesting things going on where I'm at that I have so much to focus on that I don't really think about that. We do miss, we're originally from Seattle. We do miss the Seattle summers, which are extraordinarily beautiful. And so we make a point to go back. And there are some small comfort things that you really enjoy, like, peanut butter. Most of the world does not enjoy peanut butter the way Americans do. So sometimes that can be kind of hard to find. But then when you find it, it's this fun little special thing that when you lived in the States, you took it for granted. But all of a sudden you're in Vietnam and you find peanut butter and you get to have peanut butter sandwiches for a couple of weeks.
Or when you go home.
Or when you go home, you enjoy those things.
But I mean, you also have to accept that certain things are different. It's sort of remarkable how quickly you become tolerant to these things. But for example, in most countries, there'll be like a gap. No, in many countries, there'll be like a gap in the bathroom, the doorway where you hit your toe the first 15 times and then you never hit your toe again. But or the hot water will be scalding. In the United States, the hot water is never going to be scalding because it's regulated. But in a lot of other countries, or there's no dryer in most of Europe. There's just a washing machine, and you dry your clothes on the porch. Things like that are just different, but it's remarkable. Like when we first arrived in Tbilisi, Georgia, which is in Eastern Europe, we were sort of shocked by sort of the Soviet era buildings, these concrete sort of brutalism buildings, really ugly, and people putting their clothes out to dry, and it was like, oh my gosh, what have we gotten into? But within 3 days, you don't even notice it. It's just part of the landscape. And then you notice other things that are beautiful, and the food is different, or you just sort of, there's certain things you would think you would never get used to, and you get used to them so quickly. And then, of course, there's something else that makes up for it.
It's a skill.
I'm extremely impressed with you because I'm far too picky to do it, but it's really.
You might surprise yourself.
Yeah, it's a skill.
I might not. But do you? I mean, you are such a glowing example of what people wanted to do. Do you ever see yourself living back here at all?
Back in the United States, probably not. But we do talk about settling down. We're not sure where. We looked at places, like a home base here in Puerto Vallarta, and we talk about it a lot. The world seems too uncertain to buy property now, and plus we still have so much more traveling to do. But we've often said that if the right place comes along, we'll know it when we see it, and we haven't ever seen it after 30 countries where we've lived for.
All I can say about America is I have lived there most of my life. 50 plus years I lived inside the United States, and I got to see and enjoy and experience a lot of it. So I have a hard time. I love traveling and seeing and experiencing other countries so much. I have a hard time at this point in my life thinking about going back and spending even more time in this place where I already spent so much time. And then we throw in the current situation, which we're not going to talk about, and that makes it less appealing to go back as well.
Sometimes we wonder if we would get bored, because we're always exploring some new place. And we think about our life in the United States. It wouldn't matter any one country, wherever we were. You mean you go for the same walk every night? Well, as it is, we get to explore, there are 4 directions wherever we are. And we're sort of addicted to the novelty, which is not necessarily a good thing. I'm not sure people were meant to live like this.
I'm impressed by your practicality. I'm here in Miami Beach. I see people come for the weekend, whatever, spring break or whatever, and they have ginormous suitcases and they're only bikinis. So I'm impressed by how you must be so organized. Are you?
Yeah, we're very organized. I mean, we have very, very little in the way of possessions. But I will say that was a skill that took time to develop.
Really?
I mean, when we first left the United States, we sold our house, we got rid of a lot of stuff. We got a pretty big storage locker to put things in, a fair few things, because we thought we're going to give ourselves a year to do this and see what we think of it. We didn't want to just give everything away. And then we came back at the end of that first year. We knew we wanted to keep going, so we downsized the storage locker. But then we had to downsize again. And the suitcase as well. Our first 2 years, we traveled with the kind of suitcases you're talking about. We carried a lot of stuff with us because we thought, oh, what if we might need this? We need to have this if we want to have it. And now we're down to a 42-liter backpack each that we, can strap on our backs, and a carry-on backpack, and that's it. But it took time to reach that point.
Honestly, I really respect that.
It's liberating. I know I hate people that used to say stuff like this, simple living. I would always roll my eyes, but it's sort of like your backpack has to be in balance, and then your life is in balance. If you get something new, you have to get rid of something old. And honestly, if you really have to think about your possessions, because you have to carry it. You literally have to carry it. And so everything becomes so much more intentional, and you realize literally everything in our backpack, except maybe our laptops, but even that can be replaced because everything's in the cloud. I mean, everything can be replaced. So you just, you buy something. There's really so little in life, if anything in life.
Yeah.
For people who are watching and thinking, oh my gosh, I don't know how I live without X, Y, and Z, possessions. I totally get it. We were the same way. We had a house full of stuff, and it was like, gosh, how are we going to get rid of this? And we're going to keep a bunch of it. And I can tell you honestly, now I look back and I'm like, I don't even really remember what we had, what was there. I mean, we come to a different Airbnb or hotel or co-living situation, and it's furnished, and it's got art, and it's got couches, and it's like, well, that's what I need. That's the sort of stuff that's there to have. And you don't end up collecting stuff, so you don't end up feeling weighed down by it.
And I mean, honestly, not only can you buy clothes anywhere in the world, you can get clothes tailor fitted for remarkably, relative to America, remarkably low price. You could get fitted for a suit for, $80 in Vietnam, or a shirt for $15, and it's kind of fun to occasionally switch it up and buy a new shirt. And, if you like it, you keep it. If you don't, you get rid of it.
Not that we've gotten any tailored suits. We are
Otherwise,
not nearly that fancy.
You'll be losing your gay card otherwise.
Yes, right. Oh, we lost
Two last questions, guys. What would you say to somebody who wants to do that now?
So I am the nervous Nelly, and I'm sort of the worry wart in the relationship. And I was worried. And my big takeaway is it's so much less stressful than I thought. I think our life is less stressful now than owning a house back in Seattle, like a lot less stressful. Mm-hmm. And if you are mindful and do your due diligence, the world is not a scary place. The world is a very welcoming, friendly place. And so, me, you might not like it, and I respect that too. A lot of people have told us, they've traveled with us and said, I couldn't do that full time. And people, we describe our lives and they say, I'm just not interested in that. And that is absolutely fine. But I think there are probably more people who could do this and who would really enjoy it than realize it.
To that, I would add, making this change doesn't mean a permanent thing. This is not, going and doing this radical thing that you can't undo. Try it for a year. Somebody asked me just 2 days ago, they said, my wife doesn't want to do this. What advice would you have? And my advice would be, have a discussion, maybe put your house up for rent, go try it for a year, do 1 year. And if you don't like it, you can go back home and start over again. It's not this irreversible change, and you might find you love it.
Yeah. And when we left Seattle, this would have been 2017. We wanted our income to be what we were spending in Seattle, which was $85,000 a year. And we were thinking of this travel like being on holiday. It was going to be really expensive. Well, because we spend part of our time in expensive countries, affordable countries, our first year came in at 41,000, even though we were living much more lavishly than we did in Seattle. I think our last year was 60,000, 75,000, 70, 60,000, 62,000. But again, we're spending way more money. We eat out way more. Our lifestyle is much better. Our standard of living is much higher.
Despite spending less money.
And I don't know what we're spending in Seattle these days with inflation.
Don't go there, because every time my husband comes back from the grocery store now, he bitches. One last question, Ben. What's next? Do we know?
We were sort of looking forward to retiring, to wrapping up our writing careers. And we sort of stumbled into this newsletter that has been, again, more successful than we expected. And we actually, like I said, we've been recognized 4 times here in Puerto Vallarta. So it's kind of nice. It's nice to make money, but it's also nice to sort of feel relevant still. And now we're thinking, we don't really want to give it up. It's less about the money and more about we
just worked so hard to get this going.
It's really nice. It's nice to be able to share our thoughts.
We're going to run this at the bottom when we say goodbye so people can sign up. We really thoroughly enjoy it. And I'm envious. Last time I met you, I was envious, but I don't have the set of balls like the governor of Maine who's taking Trump on. But I can live precariously through you.
Well, we love that people do that. We really like the idea that we're getting to share this and make people a little bit happier just in a small way.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for talking to me again, and enjoy the rest of your travels.
Thank you. Great to see you again.
Take care.
Mountain track, and as I go, I love to sing my knapsack on my back. Fa-la-dee, fa-la-la-la, fa-la-dee, fa-la-la-la, fa-la-dee.